Welcome to Inside the Artist's Mind. I'm your host, Trey Goodman.
I'm here at Copper Star Coffee on 7th Avenue in Phoenix, one of the best local hangouts in the valley. We got three great segments on today's show. We're going to meet an artistic photographer. We're going to hear from a really cool local band. But first, let's find out what ShowUp.com is all about. I guess this isn't mine. So Matt Lehrman, welcome to Inside the Artist's Mind.
Glad to be here.
And thanks for showing up here at Sky Cafe in Mesa, our good friends here at Sky. So you're the executive director of ShowUp.com. Now, we've all heard about ShowUp to some degree, but explain what it's all about.
Well, first and foremost, ShowUp.com is the calendar of all the theater, music, dance, and art going on all over the Valley of the Sun. And it's the project of a nonprofit organization called Alliance for Audience that was created as a collaboration of all the museums and theater companies, professional and community, valley-wide.
Now, when you say calendar, you don't mean the old school pocket calendar. You're talking...
No, this is a major online calendar. You know, a lot of people come to the Phoenix area, they don't realize how much stuff there is going on because in a lot of other cities, there's a downtown and everyone knows that they go to downtown. Well, in the greater Phoenix area, we've got a wonderful downtown, but we also have a lot of things happening in Scottsdale, Glendale, Anthem, north and south, all over the valley. And so having an online presence is a way of finding out everything that's going on. We really make it easy for people to show up at locations all over the valley.
Well, you know, I love it because my old way was reading this magazine or that magazine or checking this or that, and then you'd miss something and you're like, I didn't know that was happening. Why did you create it? And how did you create it?
That's what you just said is exactly why we created it. I was the marketing director at the Scottsdale Center for the Arts for many years. And the thing that every arts organization hates most of all is when someone says, oh, if I had known that was going to be here, I would have gone. So all these arts organizations, they all shared the same challenge. No one has enough marketing budget of their own, and there's not enough media coverage in this town, and frankly in a lot of other towns.
Or you hear about it after the fact.
Exactly. So the arts organizations together decided to create a way that audiences could find out about things ahead of time. So ShowUp.com became a collaborative effort so that audiences would have a one-stop shop, if you will, that they could find everything going on, and literally it's everything. At any one time, we have something like 4,000 different events loaded into the ShowUp.com calendar all over the valley.
4,000, and is that like a month's time, 2 months' time? I mean, what range is that?
Over the course of a year, it'll be 4,000 events, but it's a lot of events. And consider that if that show is, if it's a single show that's running for 3 weeks, that's just one of 4,000 events that are going on around the valley. It's huge. It's amazing how much is going on here.
Well, I understand why you created it, and thank you so much, because we've needed it. But how did you create it? How did you I mean, that's not an easy task, because everybody sort of is doing their own little thing, and how's that work?
Well, I have to say this was really a collaboration of a lot of different organizations, but the kind of the crystallizing moment for all this truly was 9/11. Because
9/11?
In 2001, the terrorist attack on the World Trade Centers, it threw not just the nation, it threw our community into, I think of it as a terrible moment of clarity. Because every phone stopped ringing for ticket sales, tourists stopped coming into the museums, and the arts organizations had to look at each other and say, okay, now what do we do? And not to minimize the effect of those attacks, but it really proved to be a catalyst for arts organizations to work together and say we can accomplish together what none of us can accomplish individually. 5 weeks after 9/11, some people may remember, we ran a full-page ad in the Arizona Republic that the Republic donated. That was a universal 2-for-1 coupon that could be redeemed at any theater or any museum around the valley.
Now, were you the one behind all this, though?
I was the one who made the ask, but my ability to do it really was conditioned on getting permission from all these different theater companies. And fortunately, I was able to develop those relationships, and there's been a lot of trust from the museums, the theater companies, the dance groups, the opera, the ballet. Everyone has really signed on to make this thing happen.
But how easy was that to pull off? Because, I mean, you're making it sound like it's fairly easy, but I mean, your story, that had to take a while.
Yeah, the honest truth is that it was a good 3-year process of walking around town, me and my little PowerPoint presentation, talking to staff and boards of directors and building the consensus. We didn't actually establish Alliance for Audience as an organization until 2004. exactly 3 years
3 years
after
after.
the 9/11 events. And it took 3 years to figure out that there was not just a need, but that there was a business model that could sustain this and get this going. We were very fortunate that the Virginia G. Piper Charitable Trust provided the upfront funding that was needed, and several companies, including Wells Fargo, APS, and American Express, were among the initial corporate sponsors that were able to help us get this off the ground. But it was a 3-year process, Trey, to get it moving.
And you really had to sell it. I mean, right?
I had to
Because
sell
the
it.
old way was working to some degree.
The old way was working, but the old way had a big challenge, and it wasn't just 9/11 that kind of put us there. When arts organizations compete, they tend to compete against each other, and the thought is that if you're going to this company, you're not going to that company. In the arts, the reality is that the arts compete with a lot of other things: movies, sports, dining, just hanging around and watching a DVD and staying home on the sofa or having friends over for dinner. Those are all competition for people's leisure time. The arts organizations, as a result of 9/11, I have to say, this moment where we said, if we work together, we can take on the competition with a much more compelling voice. And you know what my favorite ad campaign that we model this after is Got Milk. You know, Got Milk raises the visibility of every Shamrock, Carnation, Borden, all
That's
those
true,
different brands.
yeah.
ShowUp.com does the same thing for the arts community.
So it's got show up.
It says everything we want you to do. We want you to show up at
That's good.
all of these different places, and
like
wherever
that.
you go, it's all good.
So before show up and now, the Valley scene, tell me the difference.
You know, I wish I could tell you today that a lot more people are going, and I don't have a metric that allows me to tell you that, but I have a whole lot of anecdotal evidence from people who have found performing arts centers in Queen Creek or in the West Valley that they didn't know existed before, or people who have tried things like Stray Cat Theater, Scorpius Dance, Nearly Naked Theater Company, iTheater Collaborative, some of these small organizations that don't have marketing budgets at all.
Right.
And some loyal audiences for some of the big professional companies are discovering that on their off nights, when they don't have their tickets to something else, that they want to try something a little different.
You know what, I like it, sort of you've leveled the playing field. You're allowing everyone to come in and say, this is what we're doing. You make the decision.
That's exactly
I mean,
what it is.
That is like cool.
And audiences are smart. They can figure out what they want to go to. And like I said, there is so much diversity and quality. There's really something for everyone here in the Valley. I know it's a cliche, but there really is something, and we've made it easy to find all of that.
Well, the best thing about Show Up and the best thing about your job.
You know, my favorite thing is getting emails from people that say this has really amounted to something for them. I got a wonderful letter from a woman named Rosa who had won some tickets to a show that we'd given away, and in her thank you note to me, she wrote that she took her daughter, who was 17, and they had never been to anything like this, and boy, were they hooked. And we know that one of the greatest determinants of whether someone will go to arts and cultural events as an adult is if they go as a child. So Rosa brought her 17-year-old daughter. I'm hoping we got one for the future.
Art challenges in the Valley. What challenges do you still have?
Well, you know, the worsening economic condition is going to be a big challenge for a lot of folks, and we've already seen evidence that in some cases people are getting very careful with their entertainment budgets, so we know we have to provide value. And getting people to try places that they haven't been before is or going to events that they're not familiar with, that's an ongoing challenge. One of the ways, Trey, I know that we deal with that is through the Chase Ticket Marketplace, where just like the tickets booth in Times Square in New York, the ShowUp.com website actually sells discounted tickets at the last minute for shows all over the Valley. So far this year, more than 80 different companies, theater companies, museums, have sold discount tickets on the ShowUp.com site. So you talk about the challenges, people are being more careful with their money. The opportunity is they're looking for more ways to maximize their dollars, and they're using ShowUp.com to help them do that, and we're really proud of that.
Well, what else are you involved in, if anything? I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. But anything else?
Well, in addition to that, there is a Show Up Now Pass, which we market mostly to tourists, although if people are watching who are residents, this might be something you want to buy so that when you have visitors coming from out of town, you can take them to enjoy 14 different museums all over the Valley with one simple museum pass. It opens up doors everywhere.
That's great. What's the future of Show Up?
Well, I hope that we get a lot more use. I mean, we are at the point now where 7,000 people every single day come to ShowUp.com looking for things to do. And think about that. 7,000 people
A day?
A day means that those are people who are looking with significant others, spouses, friends, families. So there's a lot of people who are coming through this, and this is real new audiences for arts and cultural events. I hope the word of mouth catches and that the buzz really continues, because it's a wonderful resource for the Valley, and I hope that people go and experience a whole lot of things that they haven't found before.
Well, you know, we love art. That's what our show's about, and we will continue to push showup.com as much as possible. So I really appreciate you being on the show.
I'm delighted to be here.
I can't wait to see what happens in the next year or two. So.
It's going to be terrific, and especially in April, the look of the showup.com website is going to get a whole new face to it. We're in the process of polishing it right now, so go to the site. It's going to look even better.
All right, thanks.
We'll be back in a minute, but now a word from Local First.
Supporting locally owned businesses is better for the economy, builds unique communities, and preserves the environment. Find out more at localfirstaz.com. Think local, buy local, be local.
Welcome back to the show. You know, I love the local music scene, and any chance I get to promote it, I'm going to do just that. We've got Derek and Amy here of Nowhere Man and a Whiskey Girl. How you guys doing?
Great. Excellent.
You guys ready to play a song?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
All right. It's called Please Die.
One day when they all die, maybe I'll be happy. When it's just me and I, then I won't be lonely. When that day comes, I won't cry, no, I smile gladly. I turn to myself and sigh how I sure did miss me. Please, won't you all go away? Just don't want you to stay here with me on a day like today, when all I want to do is sit here by myself. These days I've been amazed with the way they sway me. I've been dismantled and frayed, they completely disarray me. I prayed many days for dismay, catastrophe, and mayhem, and I've done just about all I can, trying to forget them. Please, won't you all go away? Just don't want you to stay here with me on a day like today, when all I want to do is sit here by myself. So smoke unfiltered cigarettes, fly cheap econo jumbo jets, and ride your motorcycles without helmets. Please, everybody, move out west, so when it falls into the sea, it would just be me and me. I would still have me, you see, and I keep myself company. Keep myself company.
Oh, that was great, guys. Cool. Very cool. Hey, check them out on their MySpace. Up next, an interview with Wayne Michael Reich. It's very cool, man. I love that. I love how you just like, seems like you're just making it happen.
Nice. High five.
So Wayne Michael Reich, welcome to Inside the Artist's Mind.
Delighted to be here.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you're an artistic photographer. Could you explain to our viewers what that's all about?
Well, I think the distinction for a lot of people is they'll either put themselves as an artist in sculpture, painting, those kind of disciplines. And photographers, as a rule of thumb, are usually much more trained, they're much more rigid, much more structured. I started off as a painter, per se, and I've kind of delved into photography. I use photography the same way most people would use a paintbrush or a chisel. So when people come up and they go, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I do artistic photography. I go, because I don't really consider myself a traditional photographer. If, for instance, if you came up and you asked me, shutter speeds and film speeds and ISO and your light metering, I tend to play it the same way I do painting. I tend to be very from the gut. I tend to go with the flow, as a rule of thumb. And I think that's the main distinction, I would say, between me and, let's say, putting me in a room with somebody like, Mapplethorpe or Newton or something. I kind of deal much more ethereally with the way that I work, rather than most photographers.
Well, we're going to be looking at your work as we talk,
Okay.
and so people can really get to see what it's all about. But why photography anyway? What got you into that?
Well, actually, it kind of goes back to what I was doing before. When I was painting, I had kind of come to a patch where I was getting kind of bored doing painting.
And we're talking watercolors?
I do
oil?
mostly pop art, acrylic, that kind of stuff, and there was a fair amount of anime and graffiti influenced art too, because that's basically where I came from. And as a rule of thumb, that style, I was kind of running into walls with it. I was like, I thought I had taken it as far as I could go. So I had one last painting show, and I thought, oh, it'll be really interesting. I'll take reference photography for the painting show, and I'll show people how paintings are made to involve them in the process. And at the end of the night, what happened was I had no orders for the paintings, but I had like 50 orders for the photography. Oh, wow. So it was like, okay, maybe we might want to go explore this for a bit. And so when I got into it, it was mostly just as a distraction to kind of get myself out of the artistic box I had painted into. And it's blossomed into this very, very large, dominant force in my art now.
Well, let's talk about your work. I noticed in the architecture part of it, there's a lot of lines and a lot of contrast. I mean, the composition looks like it's a lot of thought gone into it.
It is, and a lot of that is also on the back end. When I shoot, I'm very influenced by certain artists and certain photographers and certain feels. Probably because of my German heritage, I really like clean. I like Bauhaus. I like Art Deco. I like things to take the commonplace and make them more than ordinary. And one of the things that I like about my work is I like it because it has a very strong contrast.
Yeah.
It makes you see things that you generally would never look at. For instance, a lot of the buildings, I focus in on details that a lot of people would miss. And I don't tend to shoot head on. I tend to shoot at very odd angles. I like light, I like contrast, and I like shadow. And for me, part of the fun of doing photography, is the unexpectedness. I still shoot film, whereas a lot of people still do digital.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that, digital versus film.
Digital has its uses, but for me, digital, I've always felt, is kind of a cheat. It's good for corporate, it's good for weddings, it's good for anything you have to have right now and you need to know you got it. Film, to me, has always been more painterly because you really don't know what you're going to get till you get it done.
So when we're looking at your architecture work and we're looking at the stuff that you shot in downtown Phoenix, that work, that's not digital?
It's not digital. All of my stuff is on film.
Okay.
Every piece that's on the website, every piece that's in a gallery will always be on film. My corporate stuff, I shoot on digital, but that's an allowance to myself because it's also unrealistic to go into, let's say, a CEO board meeting and go, well, I'm going to set up lights and do makeup and take 2 hours of your time, and I'm not even going to know whether or not we got it. So with digital, it's, okay, I got it. You look kind of chunky. Let's just shoot that again. My problem with digital in relation to a lot of photographers is if you know what you're doing and you're good at what you do, you don't need to shoot 300 images to get 2. It's I think a little too easy for people to get lazy because they know what they've got. It's a little bit of a cheat.
Well, let me ask you that on the other end then. How do you know when you have it, when you don't have the digital, when you're just shooting, standard? How do you know when you have it?
Well, I could sit here and go, well, I'm just that good. But the reality of it is there are times where you know in your gut you have it, and you get in the dark room and you pull it and you go, oh my God, where did this beautiful vision go that I had? I know I had it. And it's a lot of that it's the same approach into painting. It's like sometimes it takes a detour and you're not aware of that. Okay. And there are times where I'll shoot a whole roll of film and I get home and I'm all happy with myself and I crack it open and I'm like, oh God. It's sort of the price you pay. You have to be focused when you go out there. You have to have your head in what you're doing. You can't just wing it per se. If you're good, your technique and your ability can sometimes make up for your lack of focus, but I don't recommend it.
Can you speak to black and white and sepia tones? It seems like you like to use stuff like that.
I like contrast, and I think to me color is interesting, and when I do shoot color, it's usually for very enriched color, impact color. I think the main reason why I like black and white so much is, for me, there's a much more artistic range of what you can do with it. You can push it further, you can take it down further. Black and white to me is also, when I think photography, that's photography. It's classic, it's bare bones, straightforward. And for me, color photography, I like it, I enjoy it, obviously. And I go, but I don't necessarily think it has as much of an impact on black as black and white does.
Your stuff that I saw, that I looked at, I mean, that we're looking at as well, I mean, I think it has a lot of impact. I mean,
thank you.
That's what I was looking at going, wow, I really love that. What excites you, though?
In what sense?
What gets you up and makes you want to continue to shoot? Haven't you shot everything?
Well, no, I don't think it's possible to actually, especially with photography and especially with the world being the way it is, I think there's always something around the next corner. What drives me as an artist is the fact that I really enjoy what I do, and I'm very lucky in the fact that I get paid to do what I do. I get paid well to do what I do. And versus, let's say, an ordinary Joe job or a retail job or something like that, I enjoy knowing what's coming up around the corner.
What's your favorite thing to shoot?
Probably, realistically, you're going to laugh at this, knowing that I'm more known for the architecture and for the fetish and for the nudes. I really, really, really actually enjoy shooting just straight portraits, and I really enjoy shooting objects, decrepitude, like peeling paint, fading brick.
Well, I love some of that stuff. Oh,
I like
that was
seeing
great.
things in transition.
Okay.
It's probably my favorite, from the old to the new or the new to the old.
What's the most challenging thing to shoot?
Believe it or not, it's not people. Many people think that it is. And the reason being is I've been very lucky that I have a rapport with people that I can put them at ease, to put them in a situation that they feel comfortable and they feel empowered working with me. Believe it or not, architecture actually is.
Really?
Because you have to deal with a lot of outside factors, weather, light angles, security guards who want to know what you're doing, nosy people who want to know what you're doing, nosy people who took a law class and think they know what you're doing, that kind of thing. Traditionally, a lot of the architecture that I shoot, I tend to kind of scope locations out several times, various times a day, various times of the year, because you have such a range from morning to afternoon, from spring to summer, both in color and in light.
Give me some elements of what you see as in a perfect picture. Like when you look at it, what's the elements? What are you going for?
For me, I want a good dynamic composition, one that actually makes you stop and absorb. I want you to be able to look at that work and become one with it, to either have a trigger of memory, or for you to kind of analyze. I like people to see it and then go, oh, did you notice the way the light? No, and then there's this paint there. And oh, did you see how he does this? And there's this chrome highlight. I like it when people see it as a whole and then start picking it apart, and they start getting the details, which makes up the larger image. And to me, I think the best comment that you can get from people is either they love something or hate something.
Yeah.
The worst kiss of death for an artist is, at that point, I'll just go lay under a truck.
What do you want to shoot next?
Actually, I've been kind of kicking around the idea, because the immigration issue right now is such a hot topic in Arizona, and it's really polarized people on both sides. And I've actually been thinking of doing more of a documentary project where I basically go and shoot both sides. I get the illegal alien version, their plight, and then also come over here and see how people who feel they're being disenfranchised and get their voice too. Because I think part of the problem with people is on images and issues like this, people tend to take a very strong black or white. There's no gray. Yeah. And I think personally that there's a ton of gray in this.
And you want to expose that?
I think so. I think the good thing is, I think it's good when people have disagreement. I think it's good when they argue, because hopefully arguing leads to talking, and talking leads to progress.
Well, just want to go back real quick to, you talked about you were painting, then you got into photography. Mm-hmm. What's the big difference between creating a painting and shooting a picture, the photography?
I think with the painting, it's a little more structured. It's a little more rigid. I mean, I already have the sketch, I already know what I'm going to do. I may alter a few things as I'm working on it, and I may go, this color doesn't work, or this line doesn't work. But I think with the photography, when I go out there, I think I enjoy that more, because it's much more of a take your time, let's wait, let's hang out and watch the sun go across the glass and see what we get. I joke that the photography appeals to my Italian side, which is free-flowing and let's just have fun. Okay. And the painting is more the rigid, German side. There will be order, there will be structure, it will be in a box. I think photography for me is a lot more freeing. Okay. The possibility there of taking ethereal flight, I think, is a lot more there.
Any advice for any up-and-coming, aspiring photographers?
Rule number one, the best advice that I live by is that anybody who ever gives you criticism without making it constructive or helpful, or giving you a base to land on, should eventually be ignored. And the reason being is 15 years ago when I started in this market, I was told I had to shoot Southwest and I had to paint Indians and I had to do coyotes and barking dogs and Kincaid stuff. And I said no. And I stuck with what I do. I developed my style. I developed what I do. And I had this supreme joy of having a gallery who had 15 years of career basically traumatized me so much that I would never pick up a paintbrush for 6 months, come into one of my shows and go, oh, we love your stuff and we'd love to carry you and blah, blah, blah. And I actually had this person's business card on me. It was a reminder. I'd look at it and go, one day I'm going to run into you again and I'm going to tell you what I thought.
Good for you.
And it happened. And the great thing about that is stuff like that only adds to your artist cred. Because it's like, did you hear what he did? He torched, it went from a simple, this is what you did to me and I'm not pleased with you, to a, picked him up by the back of the neck and chucked him like a, And the whole.
We don't have a picture of that.
Oh, I actually do somewhere. I do have a great shot of them walking out of the room looking at me highly confused.
Well, the name of our show, Inside the Artist's Mind. So what is inside your mind?
Oh, God. It depends on the day, because for me, I don't have a rigid setup as to how I work. When I wake up, some days I want to paint, some days I want to photograph. Sometimes I'll be out and about and I'll see something and hopefully I'll have the camera with me. If not, then it'll be like, I'm coming back at the same time and I'm going to get this shot again. And the one thing that photography is fun about is you always get something different. With a painting, it's I can make you the same image over and over and over again, but I can go out and shoot the same building or the same person for a role, and I'm going to always have something different. I'm always going to get something different out of every shot. And hopefully what that does is it leads to exploring other avenues.
Wow. Well, Wayne, I love your work.
Thank you very much.
And I hope you'll come back in the future and we'll see what you've done new.
I hope I'll be around long enough to come back.
Thanks so much for being on the show.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Well, that's our show. Thanks to Wayne and Matt, and of course, Nowhere Man and Whiskey Girl. Until next time.
Count of three, look right back at me. 1, 2, and 3. Good. 1, 2, and 3, look at me. Nice smirk. You do that very well. You, go to college, cut your hair, meet a nice Jewish girl. Actually, that's cute, hold that. Going on 3, 1, 2, tilt your head up just a bit. Nice, hold that right there. Very sexy. Very good. Yeah, the sun. Don't fall. See, if I did that, I'd break my back in 3 places. Going on 3. 1, 2, and 3. Pretty. Okay. Going on 3. 1, 2, and 3.
For more information on our show, contact us at 480-969-3789 or drop us a line at moreinfo@iamtvshow.com.
I love my job.